Hello and welcome to this very special episode of Guided Adventures. As you can see, I'm not on screen right now because our house is currently under renovation. Turning this into adventure has been a lot of fun and I wanted to take you through the entire process. Now, you remember our map of the Abbey. I'm just going to zoom in here. Something that I have done is I've gone through and just put in some labels here and there just to help identify the various rooms for the actual adventure. I have added in the Silkworm Cave in the underground. As you access the underground through the Holy Hole, you come down into the actual shrine itself, or you could head along this corridor and enter into this terrifying silkworm-infested horror with multiple deep holes that lead to somewhere very dark and scary, I'm sure, as well as a small sub-corridor that would lead you into the cellar of the brewery, and then way to the north, just because we want the plumbing to be actually functional. The garderobe toilets join up with the stream and eject it out into the swamp area. On to the actual adventure, we go to GM Notes. Wormbeer Abbey is an adventure for 5 level 3 to 5 adventurers for standard D&D. This is a flow diagram of the adventure. And what you can see is I've broken it up into several different methods of getting the players to investigate the Abbey. Then I've also outlined who are opposing the player characters in their approach to the mystery, to solving the mystery. The abbot has summoned 3 ghosts to capture ents and dryads from the nearby woods. These are fed to giant silkworms kept under the abbey to produce silk and beer, which the abbey and the abbot make a fortune off of. The abbot likes the prestige of being the great abbot who saved the abbey from financial ruin. That literally came straight out of our research and out of our development over the past 3 episodes. Now, something that I will always advocate is you don't want to have to flag the players down and say, hey, go to the abbey and do an investigation. That's not what you want to do. You want to say to the players, hey, this stuff is happening in the area that you're in. Check it out, don't check it out. It's entirely up to you. Whether the player characters intentionally go to investigate the Abbey or whether they are just following the road and they are ignoring it completely, it doesn't matter. It's going to link there. And so we then break down our different approaches. We have the swamp, the forest, the road, the silk, and the relic. And what I've done is I've outlined very, very briefly each of the hooks. So, for example, with the swamp, there are rumors circulating around the local town that the nearby swamp has become haunted. Ghosts have been seen drifting about, attacking fishermen and hunters alike. Something must be done to settle these spirits. So this is a job board item. This is a fisherman who says, oh, please, my wife and I are starving. We've got no money. There's no fish. We can't go into fish because there's ghosts. Please help us. I'll give you 75 gold pieces each and this here magic item from the uncommon list. So there's a little write-up. The swamp is a grey place. Fetid pools of grim water flood the dense reed beds, making progress very difficult. So I've tried to create an atmospheric description as possible using the 5 senses. The swamp, you'll notice the thwarting nomenclature there. Of the 4 adventures, thwarting, discovering, collecting, and delivering, the swamp is a bit of a thwarting space because it's a direct combat. There's nothing much to discover here. It's easy for them to find what they need to find in the swamp. However, it is the encounter that they have there that they will have to defeat. And so they will see the ghosts gathering around an old ruined shrine, and 2 of the ghosts will flee and the 3rd ghost will attack. I've written up the ghosts' statistics there. Each of the ghosts is based on someone that we would expect to come from the Abbey. In this case, Lady Rosia de Auvergne, the very, very poor name hidden there of the original Lady Rosia of Dover. I used the Banshee as the template for this, didn't change anything up. And then I gave them some clues that if they get the remains of this Banshee and they place it in her shrine in the chapel, then she will be laid to rest and she will not come back. If they don't, she will respawn in 1d12 hours because she hasn't been laid to rest officially. I've given her a goal as well, and her goal is to remove the abbot from power, save her abbey, and find rest once again. Except that she can't because the abbot has tongue-tied them all, so she can't really say very much, but she can hint at it. And then we have the cheating monk, Bablock of Geno, who was found cheating on a farmer's wife, and he was killed. That, again, is pulled directly from the research that was done at Lesnes Abbey. And he is a true ghost and will attack the party. And his goal is just to cause as much pain and misery as possible. Very simple goal, so he has no reason to run away. And unlike the other two, he can't be laid to rest. He doesn't have a shrine in the church. He was never seen as someone who contributed to the church. So that's the swamp encounter. And something that's important with the swamp encounter is that the PCs can easily see a sewer entrance in the swamp that seems to lead directly to the Abbey's garderobe. That is critical, and that comes directly from the map that we made. Now, if they don't go to the swamp and they go to the forest instead, the forest is a collecting adventure. And what did I mean by this? Because surely the adventure is either one or the other. I wanted each of these opening acts to feel different from each other. So by just putting in this collecting, delivering, etc., as shorthand, it reminds me on how to design these adventure sections as a collecting adventure. Now, with the forest, with it being a collecting one, I went, well, how could it be collecting? And that actually helped me come up with one of the means by which the Abbey is trapping these Ents and Dryads. Squirrels chitter in the lofty boughs that cast green shadows down upon the muddy floor. The scent of acorns and old leaves makes this place calm and pleasant. Then a tree uproots itself and charges you. Drawing on my walk through the forest that surrounds the Abbey ruins and the squirrels that I encountered there, I wanted to make it feel like this calm place, and then suddenly a tree uproots itself and charges you. It's like, ta-da! Unlike the ghosts, here, when the tree reaches 20 hit points, the druid Amur will appear and say, stop, 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 stop. I do not wish for you to kill my tree. And that leads them into Amur telling them that some of the Dryads and other Ents have been taken prisoner by these peasants, and if the PCs release the Ents and Dryads, the Druid Amur will work with them. I had to put up the stat blocks for the peasants. Peasants are super simple here. They're only a 1/8 challenge rating, but there are enough of them to cause problems for the PCs, and 3 of them have light crossbows, which give them that range attack, and that's going to make it interesting for the players to have to overcome. There is a note here that I put in that killing the peasants or the ghosts will trigger an abbot response. See the abbot reactions entry later. Because when we are putting together these adventures, and then we've got the road, and the road was a discovering, so this was more of a skill challenge for them to do. But going back to it, when we are putting together these adventures, we have to understand what the goals are of the NPC bad guys, so that will give us everything that we need to know in order to run the adventure. So, for example, with both the Silk and the Relic quests, if they go straight to the Abbey and they knock on the door and they say, hey, we want to talk to the abbot about the Silk, we found blood and a tooth in there. The monks have a goal. Their goal is to keep the PCs from exploring too much, keep them out of the holy hole, and to get them to leave as soon as possible. How are they going to do this? They simply say, the abbot's not here, you'll have to come back next week. Or they will offer them a meal and they'll put monk's milk poison in there, which is a very tough constitution save, or the characters become paralyzed and then they will be fed to the silkworms. If the PCs persist, then the abbot will arrive. So glad you could come. I am Abbot Pfeifendral. Now, his goal is to keep the PCs out of his business, to keep the silkworms a secret, to keep the ghosts under his control, to make money, and to appear to be a great mind driving success. And he's got a lot of stats. I used the Drow Priestess for him, and modified it slightly here and there. Instead of summoning a demon, he summons a worm. He carries with him the relic, which is Pethandar's Crix. Now, the Crix is a lock of Pethandar's hair, which in this case, whenever you're reduced to 0 hit points, will restore you instantly to 15 hit points, and that's up to 3 times a day. So that's a really powerful relic that he will have with him. I've included the monk stats, although the monks are really only ever used in this adventure for their healing, for their cure wounds. Those 3 cure wounds, that's what they're going to be primarily used for. They will run in, they will heal stuff, and they won't engage. So the PCs are going to be dealing with that cure wounds being thrown out quite often if they don't deal with it. Now, the abbot's reactions are to send out some peasants, usually 2 per PC, to try and kill them, because he's got peasants available. Use the monk's milk poison. We'll send the ghosts after the PCs. We'll attempt to bribe them. In the event that he can see the PCs are not going away and they have overpowered his monsters, he will pack up as much gold as he can into a bag of holding and attempt to escape. So he's not going to fight. This is not a, I shall never leave this abbey, you'll have to kill me. No, he's going to take the cash and run. He's not that kind of villain. The abbey itself, we then have to detail in terms of this adventure. And so we have some history checks, we have some nature checks, we talk about the abbey, we've got the map of the abbey, and then we talk about specific rooms of importance. Because it's an investigation, every space of interest should contribute towards a growing sense of what is happening here. So the brewer, for example, I can't say anymore. If I do, let's just say it won't end well for me. And that's it. That's all that he will do. He will flatly refuse. So if that doesn't drive the PCs to start snooping around, then nothing will. Now there's that trapdoor that leads the PCs down into the cellar. And that, of course, has a doorway at the very bottom in the south end of this room that will lead them into the silkworm cave itself, if necessary. Now, the infirmary was a side room, which I thought was a lot of fun to add in some sort of medicinal checks, if we've got any characters like that, where this wounded person is brought in and basically sold off to the monks, who give him this monk's milk, paralyze him effectively, and then he disappears. And the peasant basically says, I don't know what happens, but let's just say this isn't no infirmary. Just drop off site for the graveyard, if you know what I mean. Again, just setting up that there's some weird stuff going on. They need to get there. They need to figure out what's going on. And the holy hole is going to link them there. There's a little trap that they need to overcome. They need to find the password. And if they don't say the correct phrase, that's it. Tickets for them. They take exhaustion, actually, which is part of the plan, by the way. The reason why I decided for the adventure to deliver exhaustion damage rather than to deliver damage as hit points is because recovering damage as hit points is very simple. I wanted the players to feel as if once they're in the abbey, it kind of gets its claws into them. And exhaustion requires the PCs to just take long rests and be susceptible to all sorts of things that happen at night, being poisoned, being attacked by ghosts, etc., etc. And then the silkworm cave itself, the players are not going to fight 100 silkworms. That would just be insane. So I have just given them the matron silkworm, who is effectively a purple worm in disguise, although I have reduced the power and the damage and basically everything that the purple worm has, I've taken that out. It's going to be tough. I'm not entirely sure my math for the challenge rating is correct, but it's going to be tough. It's really going to be tough. What the monks and abbot will do to keep things calm. They're going to direct the PCs away from the abbey. So they'll send them out to the swamp. Hey, go play with some ghosts and hopefully drown. They'll send them to the crazy druid, who hopefully the trees will kill the PCs. They could even send the PCs out to the road and hope that the PCs are going to get eaten by the silkworms that like to lie in the sun there. And they could just bribe them as well. They could also attempt to befriend the PCs. This could be done by giving them an illuminated book of erotic poetry, by introducing them to the game of 10 is less. And 10 is less is played on a field that, may have to do with the history of the game of tennis. And because I introduced this idea of a game, there's a little bit of a write-up on how the game works. It could be that they try and impress upon the PCs just how successful the Abbey has been, and that has fed down to the local towns and peasants making money as well. So if they were to be removed, well, everybody would suffer. And then finally they will say, well, the gods have sanctioned us because the gods have let us do our thing. Now, if the PCs make a deal with Amur, they are going to need to have the support of the Ents. The Ents go marching in. And there are some points there. The Ents are basically going to just keep all of the other bits and pieces away from the PCs for the final showdown. So if they're facing off against that giant matron silkworm or against the abbot, the Ents will be taking care of the monks and the ghosts and the peasants and all that kind of stuff. Finally, there's a little conclusion. The PCs get their rewards, and that is it. Will this be fun to play? I have no doubt in my mind that it will be. The players have got so many different components that lead them to this central point, and there are so many little side things that could or might distract them or delay them that I think that this adventure would be quite fun. I also think it could easily play out in 3 to 4 hours. I don't think Wormbeer Abbey as an adventure is going to take a very long time to play through. it is just one of those really cool little adventures. Just a reminder, if you want a copy of this adventure, head on over to patreon.com/greatgamemaster and join up the Patreon there, and you'll get that along with a whole bunch of other stuff at the end of January. Otherwise, I wish you and yours the very happiest of gaming.